story of the Moabites is one of the most fascinating yet tragic tales in the Bible. A story of origin, sin, pride, temptation, and eventual downfall. The Moabites, though often portrayed as enemies of Israel, were not strangers to God's covenant family. In fact, their beginnings trace back to one of the most controversial episodes in the Old Testament, the story of Lot and his daughters. Their journey through history serves as a stark reminder of how a single act of sin can ripple through generations, shaping a nation's destiny and determining its ultimate fate. Let's explore the story of the Moabites, their origin, rise, fall, and the lessons their history continues to teach us today. The Moabites' story begins in the book of Genesis, shortly after God destroyed the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. Lot, the nephew of Abraham, was spared from destruction because of Abraham's intercession and God's mercy. After fleeing the burning cities, Lot and his two daughters sought refuge in a cave in the mountains near Zoar, believing that all humanity had been wiped out and fearing they would never find husbands to carry on their father's lineage. Lot's daughters made a desperate and sinful decision. They intoxicated their father with wine and lay with him on consecutive nights, each becoming pregnant by their own father. The elder daughter gave birth to a son named Moab, whose name means from father. The younger daughter bore a son named Ben-Ami, who became the ancestor of the Ammonites. From this disturbing and shameful beginning arose two nations, the Moabites and the Ammonites, who would become constant thorns in Israel's side for generations. The descendants of Moab settled east of the Dead Sea, in the high plateau region known as Moab. The land was fertile and rich in natural resources, allowing the Moabites to prosper. Though they were distant relatives of Israel, their relationship with God's chosen people was complicated and often hostile. Initially, God instructed the Israelites not to attack or take the land of Moab when they were journeying from Egypt to the Promised Land. In Deuteronomy 2:9, the Lord said to Moses, "Do not harass Moab or provoke them to war, for I have given Ar to the descendants of Lot as a possession." This shows that despite their origins, God still had compassion for the Moabites because of their connection to Abraham's family. However, as time went on, the Moabites' idolatry and moral corruption drew them further and further away from the favor of God. One of the most well-known episodes involving the Moabites occurs in the book of Numbers during Israel's wilderness journey. When the Israelites camped in the plains of Moab, King Balak grew terrified at their numbers and military success. He feared that the Israelites would conquer his land, just as they had defeated other nations along their route. In desperation, Balak sought to enlist the help of a prophet named Balaam. He sent messengers with riches, asking Balaam to come and curse the Israelites, hoping that divine intervention could weaken them before battle. At first, Balaam refused, saying he could only speak the words that God put in his mouth. But after persistent offers from Balak and his princes, Balaam agreed to go, though God warned him to speak only his truth. When Balaam finally stood before Balak and attempted to curse Israel, something miraculous happened. Every time he opened his mouth, blessings, not curses, poured out. Instead of bringing ruin upon Israel, Balaam proclaimed their divine favor and destiny. Balak grew furious, but Balaam reminded him that he could only speak the words that God commanded. Unable to defeat Israel through curses, Balaam advised Balak to use a different strategy, one that would tempt Israel into sin. The Moabite women were sent to seduce the Israelite men, drawing them into sexual immorality and idol worship. The men of Israel began to attend Moabite feasts, where they bowed down before the false god Baal of Peor. This act of disobedience provoked God's anger, and a deadly plague swept through the camp of Israel. According to Numbers 25, 24,000 people died as a result of their sin. This event marked a turning point in Israel's relationship with Moab. From that moment, God declared that no Moabite would ever be allowed to enter his assembly, even to the 10th generation, because of their role in leading his people astray. The Moabites had become synonymous with temptation, idolatry, and rebellion, a nation that turned its back on God and sought to destroy his people through corruption rather than war. Throughout Israel's history, the Moabites reappeared as both adversaries and, at times, reluctant allies. During the period of the Judges, the Moabite king Eglon conquered Israel and ruled over them for 18 years. But God raised up a deliverer named Ehud, who assassinated Eglon in a daring act of courage, leading to Israel's liberation. Later, during the reign of King Saul and King David, the Moabites continued to play a complicated role. Interestingly, David had Moabite ancestry through his great-grandmother Ruth, a woman of Moab who chose to follow the God of Israel. Ruth's story stands as one of the most beautiful contrasts in Scripture, a story of redemption within a nation known for sin. Ruth's loyalty and faith brought her into the lineage of King David and ultimately into the genealogy of Jesus Christ himself. Through her, God demonstrated that mercy and redemption were possible even for a people once condemned. However, the broader nation of Moab remained proud and idolatrous. Prophets like Isaiah, Jeremiah, and Ezekiel delivered powerful prophecies against Moab, condemning their arrogance and mocking spirit toward Israel. Despite their wealth and power, Moab's downfall was inevitable. God's judgment came through invading armies, first from the Assyrians, then the Babylonians, who devastated the land and erased Moab from the map of nations. The story of the Moabites is not just a historical record, it's a moral reflection. From a beginning rooted in sin to a legacy marked by pride and idolatry, Moab serves as a warning of what happens when a nation or individual rejects God's truth. Yet within their dark history, the light of redemption still shines through Ruth, a reminder that God's grace can transform even the most tragic story into one of eternal hope. In the end, the Moabites teach us that while sin and rebellion lead to destruction, faith and humility open the door to God's everlasting promise.